Star Trek, The Nerdy Frontier. These are the discussions of the Good Times Society. Their continuing mission to explore each episode, to seek out new topics and ridiculous observations, to boldly watch what they've already watched before.
Oh.
I didn't even prep a nice intro for this one.
Ooh, that's
Jake,
the best intro.
What the fuck? You have one job.
To come up with some type of cold
A lot of jobs.
How about I do the cold intro because this is a female-centric planet.
You're right.
Love that call.
Attention residents of Angel One. We're coming down to see what you're up to. Is that cool?
Wow.
Yeah.
Ladies, we down? We landing? You're not going to
I don't know if
deny
we're
my
allowed.
request?
We're just feeble men that cannot comprehend what is happening right now.
That's so true. Good point. I guess I'll do the podcast solo today.
Can we get you a pie or a massage?
Yeah.
Yeah, could you guys please expose more chest hair or just chest skin?
Okay, but I swear, and I'm pretty sure I speak for Jake on this, we've all had that shirt at one point or another in our lives. Yeah, I mean,
That exact cosplay?
am I right, guys? Yeah.
Well,
We've all had it.
I've unbuttoned a shirt to the level that you can see all the business, but I don't know if I've ever had anything that low.
A tasteful exposed nipple just to the side.
What was
with the
perplexing
chest hair.
is that Riker's nipple was fully camouflaged in the chest hair on
It was
my
great.
definition.
Was it a makeup choice? Is that, I don't know.
Cold open complete. Welcome to Boldly Watch, the podcast where we explore awesome stuff. I guess that's what the intro we already had was for, but I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to say, I'm Becca Scott.
I'm Jake Michaels.
And I'm Xander Genre.
There we go. That's an intro, Jake.
So cold open needs to be followed by someone saying, that was the cold open, and now I'll introduce
Just
it.
confirm. It's a
You
segue,
did
but
it.
it's like a cool segue.
People like organization.
I did have in the top of my organized notes that what if I came into this episode with, I don't like how men are treated. And just started with a hot take on that.
Murder you.
Okay,
Okay,
good to
we
know.
all get it. This was such a weird episode. Well, Jake, do you want to do the episode synopsis before I explain why I feel so
Sure.
uncomfortable?
Angel 1 is while Riker leads an away team to a female-dominated planet, a mysterious virus spreads among the Enterprise crew.
Don't forget there was something about Romulans that we forgot to care about.
Well, yeah, the Romulan aspect of it, which is that there's some battle cruisers that are spotted in the neutral zone, is kind of our timer for the episode, right? It's like our pressing moment we need to solve this quickly and get to more pressing matters.
Which we always have, and this time they just really skimmed it. Okay, so the whole episode is really about flipping, like, misogyny. Whoa, there's a word for it. Androgen. Fuck. Anyway, it was like, wow, replace all these phrases of what they're saying about men with women, and it's a trope that we've all heard before and we recognize as sexism and misogyny, and it's just as uncomfortable to have it the other way, even though it's not played as a joke, but I'm sure people at the time probably thought this is funny, right? And it's not.
Right. Yeah.
It's not
And I think-
equality. It's obviously the point that they were making, sorry to jump back in, is that on
I
the
know.
Enterprise, they have complete equality, which is the goal, and really highlighting and showing people how backwards sexism is in either direction. But it just feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like outside of the episode, it feels like a product of its time, a very much like girl power like thing of the 80s, 90s type of thing. So it was like, you tried, I guess, but flipping it and saying the awful things out of a woman's mouth is not better. And I guess it was more to highlight that of like, see how bad this is? Maybe we should do something about it, as opposed to see how bad this is. Isn't that funny?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I didn't see much of the humor in it. I did see the message, which is that, this is an equally bad situation. I didn't see them as trying to, like, lift up this culture so much as show they have the same problems, they've just changed the face of it. It kind of reminds me of the classic Star Trek episode of, I don't even remember what it's called, where there are two races that share a planet, but one side of their face is dark and the other side is white,
side and
right?
the black
So it's
side,
like dominoes a little bit, but then
Yeah.
the races that hate each other are simply the colors flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, hit you over the head with the metaphor there.
Well, for sure they do.
But at least that was a little more veiled than it's just female humans that are just dominating male human. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't feel like a different race altogether for me.
Totally. So what was interesting was the captain, before they go down, is like, the reason why women rule is they are much stronger. They can be soldiers and all these things. And then the actors at the time, because it wasn't in vogue for women to be strong, these actresses, they're very thin. They're like not buff at all. And they just cast like short male actors to be their male counterparts. And I thought
Those women were pretty tall, though.
Yeah.
Well, that was referenced several times, but if it were cast today, it would be, women who are bodybuilders, I assume. That's kind of like, so I had this thing of like, okay, here's what I picture that they meant to do here.
I think they could have shown it a little more. They didn't. They just kind of stood in the background and looked a little imposing, and their costumes didn't really show that off.
Their plastic fire sticks?
Well, that's the thing. Is the little fire sticks that they have, those little plastic wands, is like, okay, that's
Give
their
them
symbol
real
of power.
weapons if you're trying to actually make these women look powerful, not puny, dinky little...
And don't make them so slightly phallic. I mean, they need to be a little bit...
Right?
They have fake little flames at the tip. I mean, maybe we're supposed to
Right.
imagine it's like a cattle prod, but
Right.
then get a freaking cattle prod. Come on.
I feel like they
Spent
won
$2
that at like a
craft store.
carnival
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like with the issues, they ran through central casting and they were like, just give us the tallest ones you got. And it was just like this lineup of just tall women, and they're like, that'll do.
Yeah, we don't have time. Our production schedule is really crunched.
So to clarify
Right.
what's going on, the Enterprise is looking after or looking for the survivors of the Odin, which was a freighter, I believe, that had not shown up for 7 years at its destination. There was a asteroid-related collision, I think they said, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know astronomy, but aren't asteroids pretty slow moving? Therefore, it's kind of like the iceberg equivalent of space. Like, they kind of slowly plowed into this thing.
Well,
like
it is a
Titanic
freighter,
situation.
so it also could have been moving slowly, but yeah, they just kind of say whatever
Then
they
they saw
want.
their doom for like a day and a half.
Right.
As
Yeah.
they were like,
And then
What do we
5
do?
months in an escape pod. I mean, he referenced Wesley.
can you imagine?
Ramsey tells us about this later, but it sounds like hell. Sounds like absolute hell. And it takes 2 hours for the Enterprise to go that distance. What is this thing doing? This should be decommissioned. Get that thing out of space.
So the crew of the Enterprise beams down and they find this society that is dominated by women, and they make men second class, and the way they show that is by having them dressed in a little bit more open clothing, and also make them just kind of the servants around the palace.
And string around their junk.
Right. It's very like medieval in a way of the cross guard, I think it's called. That's what you do with the ribbons that come up all the way up through the codpiece and things like that. So it was a legitimate like costume.
You say you
thing
think
to do.
that's what it's called, but you know.
I think that's what it's called.
I think that's what I do on Sundays.
Yeah. No, I think it was great, and really at the time, Star Trek is such a guy-based show. It was like to show something like this in Star Trek, with the men having more of like an effeminate quality, was really groundbreaking, especially for the actor that they cast to play the main like servant.
Yeah, Trent, what a manservant name too.
Right?
Trent.
Yeah, I need to get a Trent.
Trent.
No offense to any listeners named Trent, but that's the way it goes.
But this is how we will always think of people with your name if you comment.
It's the way they say it too. They say it with contempt. It's just Trent.
The moment I thought that they were trying to be humorous, maybe not, but when Trent goes and they're like talking about perfume, which comes up later having to do with the virus on the ship, scents, I guess, is it the theme there? But the perfume that Trent sprays on himself after he goes to get them is like, it's such an effeminate moment.
It's a full-on Z formation.
Ooh,
like,
yeah.
Snap, snap.
Yeah, it was a cute little bit, but I don't know if like people thought it was funny at the time. It's so weird. This episode was really weird for me. I'm not into it because I'm a hardcore feminist, and to me, feminism is the fight for equality for women. So this is like painful idea of what someone who's very much against the feminist effort would be like. See,
But this isn't feminism, right? Because you're right.
Exactly.
Feminism is about equality. This is the word you're looking for earlier was misandry, I think, or
thank you.
right?
Misandry, right.
And so, yeah, they're just showing another sexist world. And I think they've been trying to do this in a lot of versions of the first season here, where they're trying to flip norms on their head to show they're unequal in any context.
Yes.
One of the things that I did want to highlight, though, and while I agree with you, like 100% for most of the cases, one of the things in this rewatching that sort of surprised me was the highlighting of gaslighting, which we don't really see that often in media, in that the woman, the prime minister character, she's like using the language. Yeah. Beata. That's it.
Also, headmistress.
Mistress Beata. She was using the language of sort of like, well, you're making me feel bad about this, and you're doing this, and it's because of your incompetence as a man that this is happening. And I feel like something like that doesn't really get highlighted a whole lot now because it's so close to what actually happens. And I think they were unintentionally shedding some light on some techniques that they were using at the time.
I thought in this section it was pretty interesting that poor baby Trent, he gets shut down, and she's talking mad trash on all men, like what would you guys feel like to be a man on this planet? It'd be awful. But something I was thinking about is she's saying that like men are physically weak and inferior. And then it kind of feels like a joke because of, like, male domination historically has come through the ability of men to physically overpower women and being physically larger and therefore stronger. And that has been, like, the basis for domination in all realms. And anyway, that's why I like casting women who are like, model-esque, but not strong per se in my vision of the word.
I just remember these women
silly.
Being pretty athletic looking. I don't know, are they not
I mean,
they were significantly
athletic
taller
like
than
runners,
everybody.
not like lifters. Still not strong enough for the average man. Like probably even Trent would be able to hold her down because just like I'm this is why
the muscle mass.
Yeah, just like the way muscles are structured.
Right. I would assume they kind of had evolved because this culture had been around for so long. They kind of had somewhat evolved into like having stronger women and weaker men just because of the roles that they were put into for so many years or something. But you're right. That wasn't painfully obvious, nor was it shown. It was just simply stated because they wanted to get to it. And another perplexing thing about that dichotomy is that when Beata, what's her name?
Beata.
When she was with Riker alone, she puts on a very dress-like look and becomes pretty feminine very quickly. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say very feminine very quickly. There's like a line that gets written in that scene, but like in terms of how she kind of presents herself, it becomes feminine, don't you think?
That brings up an interesting point, which is that this depiction of female power is women exhibiting male power.
Yes.
And it's through the male gaze as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even Picard says it. He says something about because there was an objection that Riker put on, and he said something about this objection doesn't have to do anything with the fact that Beata's a woman, does it?
Right.
And an attractive one at that. He even mentions that.
He says that to Troy and to Yar.
Oh, does he? Okay.
He's changing into the sexy outfit, and he's like, oh, does this bother you because I'm going to go meet Beata, who's an attractive woman? And I don't know what they're trying to convey with the look they give each other, like, can you give me a break? Or like, oh, maybe.
I don't know either.
I don't know what they're saying.
I didn't know what that was supposed to be. And then in the next scene, Beata says something that doesn't make any sense if this was the way that their culture had developed. She says, she says they should go on without you to find the party that needs to be rescued from the freighter. And he says, I need to go. And she says, are you suggesting that your Lieutenant Yar and Troy can't do the search without the help of a man? That wouldn't be a thought that occurs to her.
Right. That is someone from our universe putting those lines into that alien's mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was a weird dynamic. But I also wrote in my notes, Riker horny on Maine.
Horny on Maine again. Homeboy, always so horny on Maine.
Just full on abandoned the mission altogether for some Aquanet. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Now, to be fair, this is Star Trek diplomacy, right? It's like
Yeah. But I get it. I've been in an isolation pod for a couple of months too. You just jump at whatever's on the first away mission. But yikes!
There were some interesting writing choices in here. Like even when they first arrived at the council and they asked, are the survivors here? And they respond, "I'm not prepared to say." Like the whole audience is like, "Okay, so they are here.
Okay,
we
they're
know.
here."
Okay,
yeah,
that was not coy at all.
Well, I like that they were not lying.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a rule of their society
but they hid
that
nothing.
you don't lie. You just give obfuscating comments. Can we go back to the beginning and back on the ship stuff?
Yes.
Should we talk ship stuff?
The B plot.
Okay, so B plot, Wesley has a friend. He finally has a friend his own age.
That's what you noticed?
They're frolicking around. They're wearing cute little snowsuits made of tinfoil. And I want that outfit to go skiing.
I feel so bad for Will Wheaton, the actor, in that suit, because you can tell how tight those pants are and how uncomfortable the one piece is, and he's trying to pull it to be a little looser the whole time he's on screen.
Oh.
And you feel so bad for him.
I thought it looked good. I was like, give me one of those.
It looks really cool, but it was tight.
Cool, relative. I mean, Becca, if you take that skiing, you will not only suffer from frostbite,
Chafing.
you will also have
You'll get
rash.
sunburn.
Burn
plus,
too, yeah.
That's true.
Sunburn and
reflecting the sun from the snow into your face with
That's
tinfoil.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it looks like one of those things that sunbathers would unfold. Yeah.
You go down one hill and come back just covered red and.
So Wesley goes into the holodeck and they have a ski lesson, and then they come out having exposed themselves to a virus in the holodeck. I never got where it came from.
I don't either.
I missed that.
But it does have a slight scent of some sort of female Klingon pheromone.
Right.
They were all on a field trip. Their school had gone on a field trip together, the class, and then those two boys were playing on their own in the holodeck and came out, and that's how they infected the captain and Worf.
Dr. Crusher is my favorite part of this episode.
Yes.
How does she do this? We learned that there are 900 people on the ship because 300 of them eventually get infected, and then Geordi says that's a third of the ship. So she has seen 300 patients in this one day, and then by the end she's able to inoculate all 900.
Well, she does have a large medical staff, and she is the head of a department that is taking care of all of this.
They replicate stuff so quick now, right?
It is still very impressive.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And a lot of the criticism that I've heard with this is why doesn't she get infected? She's going around talking to everybody. She smells the thing. And my counter is she probably was infected. And this is the doctor just working through, you got to push through it. And she's probably used to.
I thought she should have started showing some side effects after seeing Picard.
Yeah.
It would have been great to see her
Once she
trying
smelled
to get up out of bed to do these things and almost being unable to, right? And persevering.
Right.
And sometimes there was the moment of discovery with Picard where, it's the smell, I get it now. I know how to make it. But then we didn't get any more of the how. Think about how difficult it is to come up with the vaccine right now for this coronavirus we're dealing with. And for her to have 42 minutes to make it is come on. One woman who's head of medical, treats patients, and also is a researcher for vaccines. I know it's the future, but this is impressive.
I feel like making a vaccine for a alien virus is probably something every doctor has to go through in medical school for Starfleet, though, right? Because they probably have to do this all the time.
True.
This is one of the many instances where science is magic in this world, in that it's the timer, like you were mentioning before, it's the stakes that are heightening up, and eventually we know that technology will be able to fix, or science will be able to fix something with some technobabble or whatever, or it won't. But how it comes about, it's all people weren't as aware of creating either viruses or inoculations or vaccines even back in the day, so even those words seemed like technobabble. You know what I mean?
It's also the B plot, and they tend to kind of speed through things in the B plot a little bit just to make sure that you're this is happening anyway.
But I want it noted that Jean-Luc Picard needed to have his hairy chest shown in this scene as well. Riker could not have all of the hairy chest glory.
He was a shivery boy, Picard. He was really going for the shivers.
He was acting.
Yeah.
Sick. Acting.
Geordi takes the captain's chair really briefly. I wrote that down, and then my autocorrect changed it to Georgie takes the captain's chair. That was nice. I don't think Geordi ever's in charge of the ship very often.
It's funny because you have to go so far down on the chain of command to get to where Geordi would be in charge, and this is one of those scenarios.
And he moves over to engineering eventually, right, too? So, like, he never would be on the bridge to do so.
Well, he would, as head of engineering, he would still be in the lineup if, like, all of the other command staff is sick or gone for some reason.
Now, why didn't Geordi get sick? Maybe he's immune because...
He did eventually, right?
He did.
That's
it's just
true.
that it took longer.
Yeah. After he heard that Klingon sneeze.
So this is a sidebar real quick. I watch everything now with subtitles on, whether it's in English or not. And these subtitles, they made a distinct subtitle that said Klingon sneeze whenever Worf was doing this Klingon sneeze. And I was like, that warranted a separate subtitle.
I wrote down, what is a Klingon sneeze? And then later I came back and wrote, oh, I see.
So here's my theory on this. Because the hearing impaired probably don't hear the difference, but if you guys listen to the audio, there is reverb that they put on his cough. And so you can hear it almost echoing as if you could hear it through the Enterprise. Throughout the ship.
But I just thought it was interesting to describe it not as like a large sneeze or echoing sneeze, but this is very much a Klingon sneeze, you know.
Standard Klingon sneeze.
One of those.
But back on the planet, Riker does a little bit of diplomacy, and that involves kissing on a bed. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but my directorial brain got really excited about a lot of the camera work in this episode. Did you guys notice the camera work at all, or is it just me?
I noticed, like, as an actor in that situation, like, you really got to make up for a long time for them to nail this forward dolly move.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Like kind of a mini jib shot on over the bed.
Yeah, there's a lot of dolly moves. So there's that one shot where they're in bed, and then we see it from the angle of them kissing, and then they get interrupted by the alert, and the camera pans all the way down to a new perspective, but it's all in the same shot of just seeing her answering the call. And I was like, they're doing a lot of dynamic stuff in here. If you see it on the Enterprise too, there's a ton of dolly movement in this episode. It's very different.
Probably.
Yeah. I think they were still trying to find their style too of what does this show look like. It's not original series, but it's not quite, Buffy or something like that or Friends. So where's that balance? And there was a lot of artistic choices. One of the compliments that I will give to this actress who played Beata, though, during one of these camera shots, I call them soap takes of just silence of like, I've revealed something and now we wait till commercial break. She had a really good moment where she got some information and did some great like eye acting of like taking that information in, processing it, giving like a response look, all in this non-dialogue sequence that I really was like, good job.
Yeah,
she had a really difficult role because we hate her. Inherently. Whether it's our programmed sort of like programmed oppression of women or just this reversal that feels so dirty if a man were saying these words, that it's a hard thing to play. And I thought I noticed those moments as well.
I find her to be like a likable antagonist, like in a way, because I felt sorry for her conditioning or like, her cultural programming a little bit.
This is really interesting because we're coming from a place of consuming media as cisgendered men. We've been catered to of this sort of likable ruffian boss character, whereas, and we see that in this character because it's coded like a man type of thing. So it's interesting to see what she comes off as from different perspectives.
They did write some elements of her character from a female perspective, that she will listen. When there is the execution scene,
no, it's true.
She lets Riker speak, and then she pauses the trial in order to discuss what he said and is taking it into account, which is like the ability to listen. Not that I exhibit it well, but she does more than other leaders we've seen on other planets.
And they highlight that too in their first meeting. Riker has like witty banter with the first like officer for her that turns out to be the
Mistress
spy.
Ariel.
Yes, Mistress Ariel. And she says something along the lines of like, you speak the words but you don't listen, or you speak the words but you don't intend what you're saying. And he tries to witty throw it back at her, but she's like, no, you're not listening. And it's a great point that she makes.
Okay, so back to the bed scene. Riker's a little bit like hesitant. He doesn't know if it's the right thing, but it seems like he was down because he put on the outfit and went to her room and said he'd not go on the mission. So I don't know. Yeah. We didn't get an
I think he was
explicit
eager to
conversation.
have diplomacy happen, yeah.
This guy sees I'm sorry in trouble. So anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this line. He says, "But will you still respect me in the morning?" And she says, I hope so. Meaning like, you better not disappoint. I can't make any promises until we see how this goes. But
I would like for just like
one
gold pressed latinum to be left on the dresser and she's gone in the morning.
I don't think they've introduced that yet as currency.
What is that?
It's currency, yeah.
Oh, we haven't talked about Ramsey. I hate Ramsey.
I hate Ramsey too.
He's the worst.
Is it because his motivation is just like, no, I want to stay here?
There's no reasoning.
Yeah. It's a little
just
weak.
like, get the fuck off this planet, dude. No.
I kind of wish they made it about...
You are upsetting the whole order. You have ruined their female... I know it's not right, but part of
here's
me
the thing.
Likes it the women are in charge.
Yeah. And the thing is, with the storyline that we saw with Beata, it was so easy for us to flip that and be like, okay, I could easily see a man doing this. But could you see them writing this from a woman's perspective of she fell in love with a man on a man-centric planet and now she doesn't want to leave? She would be... There's no way that this translates.
I feel like they would make a wise choice if they did that, which is they'd make it about her love for the man and that the man doesn't want to leave his island or his planet. And so that's what I thought they would do with Ramsey. Like, he loves his new family and his new family can't leave their society. But they just made it about him.
Like, this land is mine. It's about ownership and territory.
Right.
It's weak and awful and I hate him, but he's got a pretty good mullet and I hate that I like it.
I kept writing down what he looked like, which was like a low-budget Sting from the police,
yes,
or like someone who auditioned for MacGyver and didn't make the cut. Right?
I thought it was the MacGyver actor for a hot second. I was like,
Richard Dean Anderson.
No. Yeah. He looks like Khan later too, a little bit. He's got some.
He's got
flavor.
The hair, a little bit.
Yeah.
We also learn here that men don't get a vote in this world, which is pretty messed up.
I thought you said men don't get a boat. I'm like, should we be getting boats?
You guys are getting boats?
What?
Pre-1919, women's suffrage. Whatever. Okay.
So there's a discussion with Ramsey and with Data and with Riker about the whole like Prime Directive part of this, because they're apparently immune to the Prime Directive because they're not a starship, right? Because the whole Prime Directive is like, if you have warp technology, you're not supposed to interfere with non-warp technology societies. Is that the specifics, Xander, that I'm getting?
This whole thing is messy as shit. It doesn't make any sense. Who the fuck?
Maybe I won't try to over-rationalize it.
Right, they should have Prime Directive applied if they are able to do this sort of interstellar travel.
In a way, yes. They are not part of the like. It's like they're sort of coal miners that stumbled upon like the ruins of an ancient civilization. Like no one's going to stop these coal miners from digging the coal mine or digging the coal up, but they really should talk to somebody. And if someone found out what they were doing, they would get in a lot of trouble. And the whole thing probably belongs in a museum.
Well said. Well said. But they decide that we're going to try and let these guys live here, I guess, and then it turns out that, oh no, they've been captured because they were followed when they went out to go search for them, right?
Right. Who's the spy?
Or they gave the information away, is how it seems.
And Ariel, it turns out, is allied with them and is in love with Ramsey, right?
I got to comment on this actor's portrayal when she is brought to, the headquarters and she's told she's sentenced to death. Maybe she was trying to play it cool, like, I'm tough. Her face had literally zero reaction. Not even like a little fear in the eyes or anything. It's like, you will be sentenced to death. And she's like, okay, bitch.
Is it Tuesday?
There were some non-threatening examples of like the execution too, because when they showed off the machine, they just took a vase and they just
You mean their
evaporated
best
it.
urn that they got rid of just to show how the machine works?
I want to see like something like get pulverized or something or vaporized. It's just like,
And
no.
I'm like,
You transported it into non-existence? 'Cause
is
it's
this
red.
like a ritual every time you do the death penalty? Like, it's like pulling out an electric chair and then frying up some potatoes and be like, see how powerful it is? Now let's put a person there.
Yeah,
What do
your
you-
state-hired potters are very upset
Yeah.
that all their work is just destroyed. Hours went into that thing. Days.
Well, so eventually, Riker gives a speech that pretty much seals the deal, right? He just says it's not right to treat people this way, and the evolution of culture changes, right? And so,
And you'll turn them into martyrs.
yeah, and that's
Right.
a fair point. I think that's one of the better arguments that have been made at the end of these episodes. Is like you're
Very
gonna
clever.
only hurt your cause by just executing them, and then she reconsiders and stays the execution, and then. That's pretty much the end of the episode because, meanwhile, Crusher has solved the vaccination issue upstairs.
Well, I
right?
think
Bingo.
Data also solved a big old problem with his just calculation of like, oh, well, they could fend off some
yeah.
Romulans.
We skipped all over that.
Yeah.
Everyone forgets about the Romulan situation.
Yeah, we get a good example of Data stalling for precision and like kind of vaguely disobeying orders because he knows he can, or not even disobeying. Technicality.
Got around
That's
it.
a good way of
or
saying it.
it's following it so precisely.
Yes, that's a really good point, and it's a good way to show off Data. And I think it's when Data starts to become more charming. I mean, he's been charming throughout this whole season, but like I think he becomes more endearing to the audience throughout
Yes.
these little bit of just slight tweaks to his orders. I like that. I actually kind of enjoyed this episode. I think I don't know, like the flipping of the misogyny to misandry is another classic Trek trope to just switch it up. And while I agree that it's definitely not an ideal feminist society, I think the crew of the Enterprise for the most part are like trying to show that, hey, we've evolved past this and you guys are a little bit different. I think that might be what the women like Troy and Yar are giving the kind of scoffing faces at, because men like Riker and Picard also still kind of treat these women as like a little bit less than in some ways. They still regard them by their looks.
Because when they went down, Troy was the spokesperson for everybody, and then it switches to Riker pretty abruptly. And whenever they would go back to like the formal setting, I was like, Riker, shut up! Why isn't Troy saying this? Like, why isn't Troy negotiating these deals and making these points? Why are you talking right now?
Yeah, and why do they acknowledge him? They immediately accept him as the leader and set up a meeting. She doesn't even request to talk to Troy instead, which I think would have been an interesting point. Two things. One, the ending where Beata says, in this cute and charming way, I guess we'll just have to try and reduce evolution to a slow crawl. And it's gross. That line just makes me feel sick. And it made me feel sick about the whole episode. Also, gotta shout out the planet Gazorpazorp from Rick and Morty, where the male warriors are like these evil, gruesome, violent beings that are just shot out of a cannon into the wilderness. So the women have their own society and only deal with these monstrous creatures for procreation. And I love that. It seems very much based on this as inspiration.
Yes. And I bet it was.
Obsessed with Rick and Morty. And I think that if you haven't seen the Gazorpazorp episode, it's a great introduction.
Also, I didn't know where you were going with that when you said also mentioning planet Gazorpazorp, and I was like, what? Is that a planet in Star Trek? What? Did I miss this line?
Well, I think they really nailed the thing that we were just talking about. Like, Rick is the smartest man in the universe and completely disregarded on Gazorpazorp. This female-led wise people won't listen to him, and Summer actually gets to step up and show her diplomatic prowess. And I think this is what in an earlier season before they had more female writers. Shout out to Siobhan Thompson, who's a friend and also a writer on Rick and Morty. And they have more female writers and more of a voice for Summer now, but in some of the episodes. And I think this was kind of like the transition as they were getting more of a voice for her. Different show in space.
Yeah, different show, but I want to comment on that too, is that the first episode of this newest season was directed by a woman, as a matter of fact.
Dope.
Oh,
the one with the whole Bechdel test joke in it too.
Love that.
Well, and I think you'll find that a lot of references in modern sci-fi that's going to be coming out, a lot of these creators were influenced by Next Gen or original series. So Star Trek provides this sort of cultural touchstone for sci-fi in general, which is amazing and gives me goosebumps.
Especially because Star Wars was so absent during this time. Like, Star Wars, like, when did Jedi come out? Like 83 or 84? So, like,
and then not till Phantom Menace.
Yeah, nothing for a long time. And so Star Trek really got a chance to fill that void.
Mm-hmm. For a lot of impressionable young sci-fi fans.
Us included. Well, that was Angel 1. And next week, we're going to visit one of the really interesting episodes, 11001001.
I'm excited for this.
Of the episode. While a group of technologically advanced aliens board the Enterprise to update the ship's computer, Riker discovers just how real a holodeck character can be.
Just how horny you can get on Maine.
I was going to say, we've had like 3 solid Riker's horny episodes, and this will be another one, as I recall.
From some clips I've seen, there's more to come.
Well said.
No pun intended. And I don't know. I've been really sick lately. I don't know if I'm able to. Riker, could you?
Engage.